Once upon a time, two friends joined forces to bring you the best in horror entertainment. Brian from the north, Tim from the south, each bringing their own unique perspective to the horror community. Movie reviews, Blu-ray releases, beer pairings, games, and more. Welcome to your new home for horror. This is Civil Gore.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome to the Civil Gore Podcast. I'm your host, Tim. Brian is currently on vacation, but we have a very special guest today. This is my buddy, Kendall, who runs the Spin Doctor and his Vinyl Mayhem YouTube show, where he talks about all things vinyl. It's a great show. It's one I've been listening to ever since we kind of met over online through record store sales. It's kind of how we encountered each other. And after watching Kendall's show, I realized our musical taste was like super similar, like scarily similar in many ways. So I just decided to, since Brian was out of town this weekend, I was thinking, what can we do to generate some content for the show? And so I reached out to Kendall to see if he would be willing to come on and do an October record show, kind of in the style of his show, where we just kind of bring up some records that we think are great for Halloween or October in general, and kind of talk about why we think they fit that category, and thought it might be something fun for you guys to listen to. So welcome to the show, Kendall.
Thanks for having me, man. I'm very excited about this.
Yeah, I think it'll be fun. A fun little collab. We like to, content creators that we like, we try to reach out and do collaborations because it helps everybody. We both get to promote each other's shows, and it's just fun to hang out with friends that are also content creators. So, all right, Kendall, I'm going to let you've got a few more albums than I do, so I'm going to let you kick things off. And you guys that are listening to this on the audio podcast, unfortunately, you're not going to be able to see the album covers, but we'll try to describe them as best we can. But hopefully I'm going to be able to get this on YouTube so you guys can see the video as well.
Yeah, so, for people that don't know, I'm a big record collector, as Tim is as well. And so on my channel, I like to just show stuff that I picked up, talk about records that I picked up.
Oh, and Kendall, before you do that, I forgot to say that. Let's mention real quickly like how we got into record collecting, because I think it's be a good kind of little intro.
Yeah, so I'm a huge music nut, have been since I was little. I come from a musical background with my mom. She was a singer, piano player, guitar player, so I grew up with that. So music was everywhere. I remember being little and looking at my parents' record collection. Now, I grew up more in the 80s and 90s where cassettes and CDs were getting more popular, so the records were kind of pushed away. I actually remember my parents, they had one of those things where you could take a record and copy it to a cassette tape. So a lot of our records were on cassette tape, so we would listen to them in the car. And so as times started to change, more cassettes, CDs, and all that kind of stuff. So I didn't really start collecting vinyl until, honestly, the pandemic is when I decided to actually get into it. And it was my daughters that really got me into it. They were collecting vinyl. I was like, wow, you guys are collecting records? That's crazy. And I had a couple of records. My wife she worked at a thrift store at the time, and they would get records in, and she knew that Eric Clapton was my all-time favorite guitar player, and there was a record there. She gave it to me. She decided to be kind of cool. And then from there, during the pandemic, when there was not much of anything going around, that's actually when I discovered the Record Bar live stream, which that's how we actually connected, was through that. And so live streams, and then as things started to open up, I would go on YouTube and I'd look at all these videos of people that were making content about records. And one of them was a guy by the name of Dylan, and it was Noble Records. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And I went to a record store here in Matthews and called Noble Records. And I looked at the guy, I was like, man, he looks familiar. And then I realized it was the same guy. And I went, oh my gosh, he's the guy that has that YouTube channel. And so struck up a friendship with him. And so I started buying a lot of records over there and started discovering all the record stores around. And now I have this huge record collection that my wife's going, why do you have so many records?
Yeah, I
But
know that feeling.
that's a whole nother story, of course. But that's really how I got into it.
Yeah,
Like,
it's weird how similar our stories are because my daughter actually started collecting records. Not, I wouldn't say collecting. She
mhm,
had been given one of the cheap Crossley
mhm,
record players, and so she had a couple of records, and it was really a novelty. It was like, oh,
yeah,
look at this, a record player. I used to have one of these. It was very, very just novelty thing. And so I had, and somehow in during all this, I acquired this record player or stole it from her or somehow got it in my office. And so I had a couple of records. I had Nirvana MTV Unplugged. I think I had a David Bowie Greatest Hits, and so it was just a very like niche novelty thing. Had no intention of collecting records at all. And then the pandemic came around, just like you. I got hooked on online stuff, and I went to a Twitch. Well, it wasn't Twitch at the time. It was YouTube at the time,
mhm,
called Vinyl Junkies. And
wow,
this guy named Sam, and he owns over 10,000 records in his collection. And all he did was play vinyl. And it was all kinds of crazy stuff. Like, I mean, just weird. I mean, not a mix of weird stuff and classic stuff, but it was like, it was so eclectic. And I love that because that's how I am musically. I like all
mhm,
kinds of music. And so I got hooked on this show. And through that show, you would chat with other music lovers. And I realized, oh man, there's a lot of people out there that love music. Like the vinyl community loves music. Like
yeah,
that's pretty much a given. Like if you're collecting vinyl, you have a deep, deep love of music. And I was learning so much from these people, just being in the same room with them about these different artists and bands. And it just became such a valuable time to watch this show and like you're just absorbing musical knowledge from like hundreds of people that knew way more about music than I did. And then I got hooked on the Record Bar show, as Kendall said. So you started getting into this community and you feel like, oh my God, these are my people. Like these are people that love the same thing I do. And you get kind of hooked. And then when you get, oh my God, then when you get into the actual going into the record store, and then
mhm,
you start getting that hunt mentality or, of
mhm,
like finding records. And that becomes very addictive. And I've always been a collector of stuff,
mhm,
whether it's board games or Blu-rays, or I've always
mhm,
at some point in my life I've always collected something. Used to be action
yeah,
figures or whatever. So once you get that collector mentality, and now you've combined your two loves of music and collecting physical stuff, it's like crack. I mean, it's like
guilty,
super super addictive. So it's kind of funny how we both I think a lot of people started during the pandemic because a lot of people
yeah.
started going online and looking for shows, and that's music was an outlet. So we're definitely not alone in being starting collecting during the pandemic. That's when vinyl was really starting to surge again too. So yeah, but that's great. So what have you brought us to now? And let me do one caveat before we start. These are not necessarily have to be like scary records or Halloween records or horror soundtracks. This can be anything that kind of gives you that October feel. So a lot of mine are kind of fall into that category, but that's because I collect a lot of horror soundtracks. So my collection has a lot of that in it. But Kendall, I know he's going to bring some stuff that's more in the spirit of October, and I'm excited to see what you brought.
So mine are definitely like I only have two soundtracks. The rest are going to be definitely they're definitely Halloween related though, in my opinion, and I'll explain why as I discuss them. So I'll show the two soundtracks first.
Okay.
This one I've showed on my channel before, and this was actually given to me. It was sent to me by another YouTuber, uh, the Vinyl Piper. Um, if you haven't checked his channel out, check it out. He is a crazy collector into everything, especially like 90s grunge and psychedelic stuff that you've never heard of. And he goes crazy for that stuff. But he picked this up for free. Well, no, he gave it to me for free, but he picked this up at a Whatnot auction. This is the Ghostbusters 2 soundtrack. Now, Ghostbusters 2 obviously nowhere near as popular. I don't know how well you could see that, but Ghostbusters 2, obviously, nowhere near as popular as the first one. And the soundtrack as well, nowhere near as popular either. But the reason I wanted it was because, one, it's got the really cool hype sticker on it, which I love hype stickers. I talk about that on my channel all the time, because it's not a rarity per se. I mean, it is when you think about an old record that still has a sticker on it. A lot of times those stickers got ripped off when people opened up the record, or they got peeled off because people didn't want that on there. They wanted to see the full thing. And then also, this thing is really cool because it's also a gold stamp promo. It's got that promo stamp too. So very, very cool. But I will say this: the soundtrack itself, not the best. It is mainly hip hop, R&B type stuff. Like there's Bobby Brown, there's Run DMC, there's Dougie Fresh, there's New Edition, so it's not going to have your regular, who you're going to call on it, like the original. But again, it's still fun, and it hits that nostalgia. I love, both the first one and the second one. I know this movie didn't do as well as the first one, and it kind of got panned. But for hardcore fans like myself, I still love this movie. And I thought that the two sequels that they did here recently, I love them as well. The reboot they did with the all-female cast, we won't really get into that. But,
yes, let's not.
But no, so I really love this one. I don't actually have a copy of the first one, mainly because I'm really looking for a nice original copy, and I just haven't found one yet. So that's the only reason why. It'd be easy to get a reissue, but I don't want a reissue. I want an original copy. So that's why I don't have that to actually show to you today. But so that's my first record, Ghostbusters 2. And the cover, it's got all four of the guys on here, whereas the first movie just had it was black with the symbol. So this one little bit different going to actually have the cast on it, but it's still fun.
I like those soundtracks that are from less popular entries in a series, because they're they are probably rarer in that they probably didn't print as many of them, because a Ghostbuster soundtrack has probably been reissued I don't know how many times because it's such a popular. But Ghostbusters 2, you're probably looking at that first initial run, maybe one reissue somewhere down the line. So I love my Rocky 3 soundtrack just because it's just so weird. It's such a weird entry, but it's cool.
So I have a Rocky 5, and that movie was critically panned. Sylvester Stallone hates that movie, and I could not believe it when I found that on vinyl. I was like, oh my gosh, Rocky 5. And for me, maybe it was the timing. That's still one of my favorites, even though I know people can't stand that one. But when I found it on vinyl, I was like, oh, I grabbed it as fast as I could. And I said, this is coming with me. I'm not kidding, and it's got a little bit of a warp, but it still plays. But I'm like, I'm never going to find this anywhere. And it's never going to be reissued. That's for
exactly.
Sure.
Yeah. That's what's so cool about this. So the first one I brought was, I don't know if you can see it, John Carpenter's Lost Themes. And I've got it in this glossy cover. I probably should take these out. But so obviously you guys know John Carpenter did the iconic score for Halloween and Escape from New York. And among many of his movies, he composed the music for. Very synth-based, very 80s. And what's great about this album when he came out with it in 2015, now this is a reissue from 2022, but when he came out with it, he never abandoned that 80s aesthetic that he made his his mark on with in film composing. It still sounds like something from the 80s. And what's cool about Lost Themes is none of these were ever actually used in a movie.
Oh, wow.
These were compositions he made that sound like movie compositions. They sound like they came from an 80s film that you never saw. And it's just an incredible album. He went on to make 3 more of these. He's up to Lost Themes 4 now. He's his son Cody Carpenter is also a collaborator on these with him. And I think I've got 3 of the 4. And I thought about bringing out my anthology vinyl, because he also has 2 collections of actual film scores from Halloween and Escape from New York. It's just like almost the greatest hits of his scores. But this one I just like this album more just because these are actually just original compositions, and you can literally listen to this and close your eyes and you can almost picture the movie playing, even though the movie was never made. It's just, it has that darkness to it. It's got the same kind of intensity. I would highly, highly recommend any of his Lost Themes albums. They're just incredible and perfect for Halloween. I mean, they're not all like, I wouldn't say they're all like scary or spooky, but they all have that, John Carpenter's always has that kind of sinister undertone to it. So any of these you could put on for Halloween and it would sound great. So that's my first pick, John Carpenter's Lost Themes.
Yeah. I love Escape from New York. It's not a Halloween movie by any means, but it's such a dark feeling movie, and the music in it too is so, like, even though, like I said, it's not a scary movie, it's a thriller. It's an action thriller, and like the whole time you're just going like, oh, what's gonna happen? The music's just kind of taking you on that journey with him as he's doing everything. It's such so good. Love that.
It's just incredible to me that he can make these compositions and he doesn't have a film to score it to. I mean, I guess it's all in his head, but it's just amazing that these things sound just like movie scores, but they're to something completely that's never existed, which is really cool.
All right, so I will show my next and only soundtrack left that I'm going to show, and this one is a newer one, and again, definitely a Halloween feel, but it's Beetlejuice. It's a sequel.
Interesting.
It's the fun sequel.
I like that album cover too.
Yes, I love it as well. It took 30 years for the sequel to come out, I think it was.
You probably heard about it when I was a kid. They were rumoring Beetlejuice 2. I mean, from the time I was a teenager, they were rumoring Beetlejuice 2. That's how long it took.
This has been rumored for so long. I mean, and they kept saying no. And Michael Keaton was one of the reasons too. He said he was never going to do it. Tim Burton said he would never do it without Michael Keaton. So that there were so many factors, and then finally it just happened. And I have to say, it was a great movie. I was very happy that they did it. It was one of those sequels that did not disappoint, because how many times have they done a sequel to a movie that was as iconic as Beetlejuice and it just fell flat? And I think that was one of the fears, is that they would make a sequel and just fall flat. But this one definitely did not. But this is a great one because it's not like there's. It's mainly songs that were in the movie, like popular songs. Like there's if you haven't seen the movie, spoiler alert, MacArthur Park is a very popular song that is in the movie. Very funny, actually, how it's used. And there's like 3 different versions of the song in it. Or maybe it was just 2. But, and then there's like Tragedy by the Bee Gees, Deo, of course, you got to have that. Let's see. Right Here Waiting by Richard Marx. There's that one scene where you got Beetlejuice lip syncing to that song. But then, of course, you do have the Danny Elfman main theme, and the end credits scene. And Danny Elfman, of course, worked with Tim Burton. I think he's done every Tim Burton movie there is, actually. Batman's Edward Scissorhands. I mean, he's another one of those guys that's very iconic when it comes to his movie scores, and also has that very good way with the dark sounds, and just very, very, very iconic. But another cool thing about this record, and I probably wish I had done this before. This is on a very cool color vinyl as well. Let's see if I can get it out real quick without taking too much time. Oh, and I kept the hype sticker for this one too. It did come with a hype sticker. I'm a hype sticker guy.
Thanks to you, Kendall, I actually cut out my hype stickers now because I was like, man, I keep throwing those away. I may need to save them just in case.
Yeah, if I can, I try to keep the shrink on it. But if it's a gatefold, it's kind of hard to. But
yeah,
it comes in two different colors, but this nice purple color here.
Yeah, if you guys are listening to this, it's a brilliant purple. It's like super bright. It's really cool.
And then the second one is actually a different color. That's what's actually really cool about it, is that it's two different colors. So give me just 1 second here. I'm sorry, I should have been more prepared. That's my fault.
I love when they do two separate color.
Yeah,
for double LP sets.
Makes it more fun. Sure.
The horror soundtracks seem to have a lot of really cool color combos too.
They definitely do great color stuff, because I feel like with that they can do just more. Because horror is so much color, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Got this green,
and they always do they can do blood splatter and that kind of. Yeah. Okay, we got a kind of a pea soup green going on. That's cool.
Yeah, so to go along with Beetlejuice's colors there. Yeah. Well, anyway, just a fun soundtrack. I will say I don't have the original Beetlejuice soundtrack. That one's actually kind of harder to find. Again, I could do a reissue, but would rather have an original. So, holding out for an original. Hope to find one day.
Well, I guess I will show one of my soundtracks then. And this is again, like I told you, I love soundtracks for weird movies that weren't very successful. And this movie here is widely considered one of the worst sequels of all time. And I am talking about The Exorcist 2, The Heretic.
Nice.
This is a soundtrack. It's got Linda Blair featured on the cover. And you may ask, why in the world did I pick this up? Because this movie is terrible. It's, like I said, it's widely considered one of the worst horror sequels of all time. One of the worst sequels of all time, period, regardless of genre. But the reason I picked it up is it's actually composed by the genius Ennio Morricone. Oh. And, he has done countless, scores. And I love the juxtaposition of this terrible movie and this brilliant composer in the same package. I just thought that was just great. So, and it's actually a really good score. It uses a little more like horsewhip than I'm accustomed to in my soundtracks. I don't know why he uses a whip constantly. There's a lot of whipping in this soundtrack, but it's actually a really good score. And this one, I just made that pea soup comment earlier about Beetlejuice. This one actually comes on pea soup green. That's what it's called. Nice. Because of course in The Exorcist she vomits up pea soup. But I don't have a copy of the original Exorcist soundtrack, but I've got something related, which I'll show shortly. But this is another one of those that's just like, it's such an oddball choice that I almost had to have it. And I collect a lot of Ennio Morricone scores anyway, so you'd be surprised how many like famous composers did awful horror film scores. I know John Williams has done some. Every now and again I'll run across them and I'll go, wow, I've got to have this. The movie's terrible, but this it's a brilliant genius composer who did the score. They're usually really, really good. So yeah, that's mine. Exorcist 2, The Heretic. I think this was a 2021 reissue. It was originally released in 1977, and yeah, this is a very nice reissue from Warner.
Very cool, very cool. And it's so funny that they would choose that movie and soundtrack to reissue, considering
Yes.
the movie was such a bomb.
Yeah, it's one of
You
those
know?
that that one definitely is one of those that they reissue for horror collectors. I mean, that's the only reason they ever reissued it, was just for to get suckers like me who love horror to spend money on something they probably never would have otherwise.
Most definitely. Most definitely. But I mean, I have to admit, it's cool.
It is cool. Yeah.
All right, so my next record, again, no more soundtracks, but this definitely has a horror feel to it. So, as I was telling you earlier before we started the podcast, last weekend I went and saw Alice Cooper. It was the second time I saw him. Matter of fact, this is the shirt that I bought while I was there. And this year marks the 50th anniversary of this album. So I'm actually hoping that they do a special edition of it before the end of the year. I don't know if they will, but the album is Alice Cooper, Welcome to My Nightmare. This is my favorite Alice Cooper album. And it's a concept album. It's got a very iconic cover. It's considered probably one of the most iconic of the genre. It was his first solo album. The band Alice Cooper was no longer, so he took on the moniker of Alice Cooper, or the character. And it's a concept album. And it's basically a telling of a person by the name of Stephen, a child who's having a nightmare. And it's so great because there's songs on here that will definitely creep you out. Like the first song's called Welcome to My Nightmare. Then there's a song called Devil's Food, and it ends with a special guest, Vincent Price. And of course, you can't help but think of Vincent Price and think of horror movies. That iconic voice doing whether it's a voiceover in a movie, a music video, a thriller, of course. But he's talking about a black widow spider and how the female it mates with the male, and then after it mates, it cuts off his head and it eats it, and then it goes into the song The Black Widow, and it's like, what? And then just this, I mean, it's just this great album. And they actually did it was either an ABC or an NBC special after that included Vincent Price. It was a very popular special that would come on late nights. Just very, very creepy, of course. Just, I mean, a lot of fun. This was actually his biggest selling album, too. And that's even after stuff like School's Out and $1 Billion Babies and all that kind of stuff. So, very iconic album and just a lot of fun. And before you show your next one, I'm actually going to move to my next one because it also involves Alice Cooper as well. This is his new album that just came out this year. And what's cool about this is it's called The Revenge of Alice Cooper. And this actually includes the actual band, all the living members of the original Alice Cooper band. And then Glenn Buxton, who passed away about 20 years ago, they used a backing track of him for one of the songs, so it actually is all the original members on here. But the cover, I just love the cover. It's got that old 60s horror movie look to it. And again, you can't think of shock rock and horror without Alice Cooper. He puts on just such a great stage show, with guillotines, snakes, spiders, getting stabbed, all kinds of fun, dark stuff. And, just has that horror feeling, and just a lot of fun and great hard rocking music too. And this is a great new album that came out this year. Still got that great Alice Cooper sound to it. If anyone is a Alice Cooper fan, I encourage them to check this album out. It's going to definitely make my list of top albums of the year for sure. Alice Cooper is 77 years old and still putting out great music and still putting on a heck of a stage show at his age. Can't go wrong.
Yeah, I was really kicking myself for not seeing him when he came to Wilmington, and I was almost going to go, and I've never been a huge Alice Cooper fan, not because I have anything against him. I just haven't listened to a lot of Alice Cooper. Growing up, I just never listened to him. I mean, I think the most I knew about him was from the Muppet Show when he did, when he did Schools Out. So I just didn't know all about him. And people were saying, you got to go see Alice Cooper. And I was like, and I went back and forth. And ultimately I decided not to go. And I've been kicking myself ever since, because since then I've gotten more into it and knew and heard from people how good his show is. And I listened to the new album, which was great. I love the cover. I was surprised at how many people didn't like that cover. I mean, how can you not like that cover if you're any kind of fan of old horror posters? I mean, it's ripped right off of the old style horror posters. So
exactly,
I will never to this day understand the hate for that cover, because I think it's freaking awesome. I wanted to buy it without even hearing the album. I didn't care. I was like, that's a cool cover.
Right.
No accounting for taste, I guess. So, but yeah, if Alice Cooper ever comes back, God bless him. If he's 80, I don't care. I will go see him on stage, because I've just heard nothing but good things. So my next record I'm going to show because it's related to the Exorcist 2 soundtrack.
Nice.
And this is Tubular Bells by Mike Oldfield. This one is, of course, not the official Exorcist soundtrack, but the first track of this was used as the Exorcist theme. And the cool thing about this album, you can find this album everywhere. Like this album, like you see this album pop up in bargain bins everywhere. This one actually was still in the shrink, and it still has a $5 price tag on it, which is kind of cool. But yeah, Mike Oldfield was only 19 when he recorded this album, and it became an instant success. It's very what's funny about this is this was never intended to be scary music. Like this is it's an electronica album. I mean, I guess electronica-ish album. It was designed just to be that style of record, and it's basically 2 tracks that are like 20 plus minutes long, one on each side. It's just a long piece of music, and the piece you hear in The Exorcist is a very small snippet of the actual track, and it's probably the more quote-unquote creepy sounding snippet, because the track goes in different directions that don't sound scary at all when you listen to it. So it's kind of funny that everybody thinks of Tubular Bells and they go, oh my God, and they think Exorcist and all this stuff, and they think it's so scary, when it really wasn't. Like it was not. This is not a horror record. It's just a very widely critically acclaimed piece of music. And this one was from, let me pull up my little cheat sheet here. This one was from 1973. I don't know. This is obviously not a first pressing, because it has a sticker saying, hey, this is from The Exorcist, guys.
Yeah.
It's a little hype sticker. So it came out after the success of The Exorcist. But I think it's funny. I'm always fascinated when non-scary songs become scary because somebody set them to scary movies. And like the other example would be Tiptoe Through the Tulips by Tiny Tim. You see that on TikTok now, and it seems so scary and it's like so creepy. And I'm like, I remember when that song came out. I mean, I don't remember when it came out maybe, but growing up hearing it was a novelty song. It was played for laughs. It was a comedy song. It was nothing scary about it. And now it's got like this creepy, sinister undertone to it. But this one, like, I feel like everybody's got to have a copy of this just to get them out of circulation, because there's like 50 trillion of these floating around out there, and every record store has this in their bargain bin. So just take one out of circulation, do the record store owner a favor. But it is a good album. It is a good album.
I do not have a copy of it, though. I will be honest with you. I do not have a copy.
Yeah,
it's
so you got to really
it's not really my forte. But it is. You're right. It is a very popular album. You see it all the time. So. So my next one, this this is probably my oldest record that I'm going to show today. Very, very cool record when you think about the backstory behind this artist and the record itself. But it is 1968 Dr. John Grigri.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah,
And it's got a spooky looking cover too.
Oh, and the music itself is pretty spooky too when you think about it. So Dr. John, he has a very interesting backstory. He actually began his career as a guitar player, but he was very into drugs and very into some things with the law, and he actually was shot in the hand and so he actually ended up missing part of his finger, and so he couldn't play the guitar anymore. So he became a piano player of all things. But this is his first album. This is an early reissue, but this album, he took on the moniker of the Night Tripper, Dr. John the Night Tripper Grigri. Now, Grigri, obviously, it's a New Orleans talisman that gives you some kind of a power or something. Very, very French Quarter, Baton Rouge, down in the bayou type stuff. And the music itself is very New Orleans jazz, funk, soul, psychedelic, and it sounds like it, and it's very creepy. I remember the first time I heard this record, I was just listening to it, going, "This is something that you would play at a haunted house." And just have in the background while people are walking through a haunted house, because it's got all these weird sounds and like the lyrics don't make any sense, and like there's just these weird sound effects that they're making with like the instruments, because there's all kinds of instruments in this too, but just a great sounding record to begin with, but just very, like I said, very psychedelic. So obviously he was on an acid trip, I'm sure, when he made this record. And I'm sure if you're on an acid trip listening to it, it probably makes more sense as well. but like a very, like I said, just from that cover, very, very creepy looking as well. But I love Dr. John. Just a very, very awesome. He always wore these weird outfits too that were very, very voodoo looking. Which you think voodoo, obviously you think horror as well too. Very dark, very into the mystic, underbelly of the afterlife, and all that kind of stuff. And this goes right along with it. Very, very cool record. Very, very creepy. Not one you play for the kiddies at night, for sure, because it'll probably give them nightmares.
Yeah, that's a great record, and it's not one I have. I need to get a copy of that one, because
there's great reissues actually. Jackpot Records put out the mono mix cut by Kevin Gray, so very affordable.
Oh, nice.
So look that up.
Very nice. This next one I'm going to show is probably the quote unquote coolest of the ones I'm going to show. I just think it's cool because it's so unique. And this one is called Paura, a collection of Italian horror sounds from the Cam Sugar Archive. So what this is, and Kendall, I don't know how familiar you are with giallo horror, but in the 70s, the Italians did a lot of horror movies, and it's considered giallo, which is Italian for yellow. I can't remember the origins of why that is, but they were horror movies that were often centered around a mysterious killer who was killing people, but you didn't know who they were, and you didn't find out until the very end of the movie. They were usually very colorful. This thing's got a brilliant gatefold in it. Super, super cool. And this company, or this label, Cam, was an Italian label, and this is just regular black vinyl. But this Italian label was one of the first in the 50s and 60s to specialize in cinema vinyl. So vinyl cinema scores. So the reason it's called the Cam Sugar Archive is another label, Sugar Music. I can't remember their official name. Sugar something, Sugar Production, Sugar Music. Bought all of Cam's archives of Italian compositions, and they've been, they re-released them in curated sets like this. But this is super cool. The crazy thing about the Italian horror scores is they were often not scary. They were very, if you watch them today, they almost seem out of place. Like you would see some guy murdering somebody and it's doing this, da, 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 da. It's playing this like really nice, pleasant music. It's very disconcerting. But this one has some, if you're any kind of Italian horror fan, obviously it's got Ennio Morricone on it. It's got Bruno Nicolai, who's a huge Italian composer, Stelvio Cipriani, Riz Ortolani. These are names you hear a lot come up in Italian horror cinema and giallo. So this is just a brilliant, it's a double LP with, I don't know, like maybe 30 tracks of just snippets from various Italian horror movies. This is one of my favorite film-related, horror-related records I have. It's really, really cool.
And talk about cover. that's a crazy
the cover.
I mean, a lot going on in that cover.
The cover, if you guys are listening to those, the audio podcast, sorry, I got choked. It's somebody sitting behind a giant eyeball, and there's a gloved hand, which is a very giallo signature razor blade with a spider on it. I mean, it's got all kinds of stuff going on. I have some actual that I didn't bring out. I actually have some Italian giallo soundtracks that are like this full score for the movie. And some of those are represented on here, but it's a great collection. You can find it. I mean, you can pick this up. Like I got this at Target of all places, online, not in the store. But I actually got this at Target. So I mean, this thing is not hard to find. You can find this record, and if you're any kind of like 70s horror fan, like highly recommend it.
And it's funny, it just goes to show you that in Italy, the Italians were making all kinds of stuff, the Western, the horror movies.
Yeah.
And I mean, all kinds of stuff. And, that stuff, believe it or not, is just so popular over here. And the actors that were making those movies, a lot of them were American actors that were trying to get, popular here and just couldn't. So they're going over there and making those movies and then getting discovered by people from over here. And that's why those movies got popular.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny. And it's the same thing with the music too. Like you were saying, how it almost doesn't fit. I think that's almost on purpose. So yeah, very, very interesting. Very interesting. I'm going to show two more at the same time again, because they are connected. The first one is, so this actually I just picked up, and I haven't even shown it on my channel yet.
Oh wow, we're getting an exclusive here.
This I picked up from somebody that we know in common, Doug Osbury, who we met through the record bar as well, who now has his own shop, Big Love Vinyl in Southport.
Which I still need to get to. I keep telling Doug I need to get down there. I just haven't made the drive yet.
Yeah. So this is the Cramps. This is their first EP, and like the title says it all: Gravest Hits, not greatest hits, gravest hits. It's just a 5-song EP. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the Cramps, they came out of California. Well, I say California. They kind of came out of everywhere. They tried to get started in California and went to New York. I don't really know where they actually got their break. I think it was New York. They're from California. But Lux Interior here. It's not his real name. I don't remember what his real name is, but his stage name and what he went by was Lux Interior. And then his wife here, Poison Ivy, which, I mean, it doesn't get much more Halloween-y in October than that, of course. But great guitar player. She is actually a phenomenal guitar player. Great. But this is a first pressing on the IRS label. But this, what I love about them is they're punk, but they're also rockabilly. So they combine the two, which is really, really fun. So you have this actually has one original song, and then the rest are covers. The original being "Human Fly," which again, if you just think of that name, and if you've heard the song, definitely has that very uh, psychobilly, kind of dark, weird theme to it. And then it's got songs like "The Way I Walk," "Domino." It's got "Surfing Bird" on this, and then what was the other one? Um, "Lonesome Town" by Rick Nelson. So I mean, you
Yeah, I love
don't
that
think of a band. You don't think of a band like the Cramps singing those types of songs, but you know they punkify them and just make them very, very cool. And then the next one, this is another one that I picked up this year. It was heavy on my want list, and again, it's an OG pressing, and this is their second album by the Cramps. Very cool, iconic cover, "Psychedelic Jungle," and this is the one that has the song "Goo Goo Muck" on, which obviously just recently that song got really popular thanks to the Netflix show Wednesday. Uh, it was played in the scene, of course, where she's at the dance and she has that iconic dance scene. Uh, Again, that song even is a cover song. But they were just their stage shows were very unique as well because Lux Interior would come out in these weird outfits. Uh, and Poison Ivy would come out sometimes wearing some very lucrative outfits as well. But just the type of way they would play fast and hard and heavy, but they'd be playing these songs from like the 50s from like, people like Johnny Cash, Rick Nelson, Roy Orbison, all these rock guys, and they would just play them fast and quick and just made them, you know, more fun and cool back in the late 70s and early 80s, and they made them dark and dreary as well. And like I said, very kind of a funky looking, uh, funky cover. But the Cramps and I just like the way their logo, like the way it looks too. Again, very dark looking, very Halloween esque. So love the Cramps. Unique style. Always been one of those bands that either you love or hate. There's no in between because they're very unique and different.
Well, I've got one that kind of matches up with that because it's not really it really has nothing to do with Halloween, this band, other than their name, maybe. But I think they have, like, to me, they've always had this kind of sinister, spookyish undertone because I think they use a lot of minor keys in their songs. But their songs are not supposed to be scary. They're not supposed to be. Anyway, this is the Zombies.
Yes.
R.I.P. The Zombies, obviously, their most famous album is Odyssey and Oracle, which has, I think that's the one with
Time of the
Season. Yeah. And what's funny about this one is when you look at it, and you could actually see it better on camera. When you look at it, it looks just like a black album. But if you look like Kendall, you could see it. You actually see all the band members on it.
Yeah.
But when I'm looking at it straight on, you can't see any of that. It looks just like pure black. It's really, really cool. But the Zombies, so R.I.P. was their lost album. Oh. This was originally supposed to be released in 1969. The Zombies had very little success in the U.S. They were obviously an English rock band, but they really didn't break into the U.S. Very well. And they really struggled to get into the U.S. market. So in 1969, the band was really going through some changes. I think at least two of the members were gone at this point. They were trying to get one more album out. And they had this album ready to go. And the label just shelved it. It was never released. And it was considered a lost album until 2000. Now, granted, there had probably been reissues of all these songs on various box sets and things in the interim. But in 2000, they finally compiled it into the original album and released it. This is not the 2000 version. This is a 2022 reissue of that version. But and it doesn't have any of the, obviously the Zombies are known for Time of the Season and She's Not There. That's their two huge hits. But a lot of their songs are fantastic. The problem with the Zombies is you can't find, like, most of their stuff was like scattershot. Like you had to get it in box sets or in some kind of B compilation, or you couldn't just go, oh, I want the Zombies third, fourth, album. Now they're making new music even to this day. I don't know what their lineup looks like. I don't know how many of the original members are there, but yeah, like the original, like 60s Zombies, you always had to like buy all these scattershot records to even get like their full discography. I've actually got I've got Odyssey and Oracle. I've got this one, R.I.P., and I've got another one that I can't remember the name of right off the top of my head that I think is an official album, or maybe it's a collection of B-sides. Who knows? But they are one of my favorite 60s bands. If you have not heard anything outside of Time of the Season and She's Not There, highly recommend it. Again, it's not spooky music. It's not scary. It's just good old-fashioned 60s love songs with a little bit of psychedelic twinge, but they do tend to use a lot of minor chords, so I think they qualify. And the name, they're sinister enough for October, in my opinion.
Yeah, oh yeah, man, I love the Zombies. It's just great classic stuff. So yeah, definitely. So going back to, I have two more I'm going to show, but I'm going to break it up. Back to the punk scene again. It doesn't get much more dark and sinister than the Misfits.
Ooh, nice. Yeah.
This is a reissue because originals of this are super expensive. And I don't even have one of their albums that's even more sinister looking than this. This is their first. This is collection 1. But this logo is just so synonymous with anything that's Halloween related. And then the songs too. I mean, it doesn't get much more than Horror Business, Teenagers from Mars, Night of the Living Dead, Vampira, I Turned Into a Martian, Astro Zombies, Ghouls Night Out, Earth AD, Die, My Darling. I mean, Death Comes Rippin', Wolf's Blood. I mean, that I'm only naming a few,
Yeah, they're very hard.
Yeah, and then the vinyl itself is actually on this glow in the dark vinyl, which is really cool. You turn the lights off and put it under the light, and then it really glows. It's a very, very cool thing to play at night. So very, very, very fun. This was an RSD Essential that came out, I want to say last year. I don't know if it's still available though. But yeah, Glenn Danzig, the creator of the Misfits, he went on to create Danzig, a couple other bands. He's back with the Misfits now again, I believe. But he's just, a very unique guy in general. And, they were very, another stage show where, paint on their faces, weird haircuts, very, very different, and just very dark, kind of scary. Again, just
perfect October band for sure.
Definitely.
All right, I brought my last two albums are the most Halloween-y of all the albums I brought. In my opinion, the first one up needs no introduction. This is probably one of the most popular soundtracks of all time, and that is the original Rocky Horror Picture Show soundtrack. And what's incredible about this copy is this is an original. Look how clean that is. I mean, nice. This is.
I thought it was a reissue.
No, this is actually an original. This was, now it may, I will say, if it is a reissue, it's a very early reissue.
Okay.
Because a buddy of mine gave this to me from, he doesn't collect records, and he had a stash of records he had when he was growing up, and he gave them all to me, and they are like, they're all like this. They're like pristine. Wow. The Rocky Horror Picture Show is kind of a funny story because I knew the soundtrack long before I'd ever watched the movie, just from knowing Time Warp and stuff. So I'd listened to the soundtrack, and when I first saw the movie, I must say I was a little bit disappointed because it's not really a great movie.
No.
It's very it's very weird. It doesn't make a lot of sense when you first watch it. And it took me, like several viewings. It took me a lot of reading about it, like the cult phenomenon around it, and the audience interaction piece, and how that helped fuel the cult aspect of it to really appreciate it, which I do now. I appreciate it for what it is now, but it's just kind of funny that I came into this backwards and knew of the soundtrack long before I ever knew the movie. But this one's a favorite of my kids. My kids love this soundtrack, even though it's probably a little, I guess they're getting old enough now they can handle it, but it was a little risque when they first discovered it. They probably should not have been listening to it. But yeah, they absolutely love this. And this is one we put on every Halloween Rocky Horror Picture Show with Richard O'Brien, music and lyrics. Yep, that's a classic.
Nice. All right, well, I'll show my last one here. And I could have picked any, really any from this guy. But I went with this one. This is, I think, maybe the best cover is why I picked this one. We actually just lost this guy this year, just a month ago, really. I guess it is. But it's Ozzy Osbourne's Bark at the Moon. And the cover is really the big reason. And heavy metal music in general, a lot of it has a very dark, just Black Sabbath in general. Like, you think of that first album, the way it starts off with the rain and the bell sound and, all that. And, Ozzy just had that voice. And then when he went solo, his covers, I could have easily picked Blizzard of Oz, Diary of a Madman, but I went with this one because of the werewolf look. It's a very iconic cover. The title, Bark at the Moon, and just, fast guitar, screaming vocals. Any Ozzy Osbourne album is a perfect October album to listen to, because he's going to be singing and what people, for the longest time thought was a satanic thing. But, Ozzy was not a satanic person, even though he did bite the head off of a bat beyond the Alamo. He had his issues, of course, but, he was not a satanic person.
No.
But this album is a great album. This is a first pressing. It's actually a promo copy I picked up.
Oh, wow.
Recently as well. Very happy to find this. Bark at the Moon is such a great song. Just that guitar riff. This was actually the first album he released after the passing of Randy Rhoads, so it's got Jake Lee on guitar. Great record. Was very stoked to get this one when I did. And I actually picked it up the week he died too, and was lucky enough that the prices did not skyrocket either, because
I know I was before he died, I was in a big Black Sabbath kick, and I was picking up the early albums because I'm a huge Ozzy fan as well, but I didn't have any of his stuff on. I had Mama, I'm Coming Home, like a picture disc or something, but I didn't have like any of his albums on solo albums. And then he ended up dying, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm never going to be able to afford these.
Right.
So I guess I'm going to be stuck with reissues, I guess, if I want to pick any of those up. But I really do need a lot more Ozzy in my collection, because I am a huge fan. So last but not least, this is my final album, and this is the only album I'm showing that this is the only record I own that survived my childhood. It's the only record I have from when I was a kid. I do have some records that I repurchased that I had as a kid, and I like Disney's Thrilling Chilling Sounds of the Haunted House. I bought that one, a reissue of that. There's a few that I just for nostalgic purposes I rebought, but this one is actually my original copy. It's from 1977, and it's on Peter Pan Records. If you remember that as a kid growing up, Peter Pan did all the kids' records. And this is Monster Mash, the
Yes.
original Monster Mash,
Yes.
Bobby Pickett. And this one is neat because it has a bunch of novelty songs, like famous novelty songs like Purple People Eater, Itsy Bitsy Teeny Weeny, Yellow Polka Dot Bikini, Witch Doctor, Dinner with Drac, Does Your Chewing Gum Lose Its Flavor on the Bedpost Overnight, Big Bad John, like not necessarily
cool.
all Halloween themed, but there's like
Yeah.
it's like a greatest hits of like old novelty 60s novelty songs. The cover is just amazing. It's got this animated Dracula, Frankenstein, werewolf, and I guess Dracula's wife or something in the background
Cool.
dancing. And then on the back, this is the most amazing part of this record. So on the back, there was a monster maze. And even at that early age, I knew not to draw on the back of the record because this is unblemished. I did not draw a path through the maze, which is amazing. I can't even. I don't even know how that happened, but I guess I was
right.
I guess I was smart enough not to, even back then, though, not to draw on my records. But yeah, this one I'm really proud of. The only reason it's in this good a shape is because I had it framed when I got it from wherever I can't remember. Like, at some point it was given to me as my mom cleaning stuff out, and she, hey, here's one of your old records. So what I did is I put it in a record frame, and I had it hanging on the wall like as a piece of artwork. And that's the only reason it's in such good shape as it is. Now, the vinyl itself, I don't think is in great shape. I mean, it's certainly playable. But it's definitely not pristine. The cover is actually way more pristine than the vinyl. But as most kids' records are hard to find, kids' records that are in good shape. But I'm really, really excited that I held on to this because it was one of my favorite records growing up.
That was cool.
And Monster Mash. You don't see this one. This is one you can't go on Spotify and look for this particular album. It's just not there. You can find the song, but this particular compilation this has always been kind of a one of a kind 70s deal. So
I'm curious what that goes for on Discogs.
I don't know that I've ever looked it up.
You should.
That'd be interesting. I should. Yeah, I need to look that up and see if it's like, if it's something real rare, or if it's something that's like, oh yeah, you get that for $3. I don't know. They may have made so many of them. Who knows? I don't know. But I'll have to look that up.
But I guarantee you, most of them are not. The covers are not that clean. They all had the maze done and all that stuff. You probably have one of the only ones that's that.
Yeah. I need to put it. I mean, obviously, I put it in a. I've got it in a cover and everything, but so I always I treat this one with kid gloves because it's just such an old part of my childhood. But it's in great shape. At least the cover is. But yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed that. That was just kind of our run through of some October records. If any of you guys are vinyl collectors, I don't know if any of our listeners are or not, shoot us a email at civilgorepodcast@gmail.com and let us know what records are in your October playlist. I've got a ton of actual horror soundtracks that I've thought about showing over the years on YouTube and stuff, but I didn't know how much interest there was in it. So if any listeners are interested in vinyl and horror soundtracks and that kind of thing, definitely let us know and we'll be in touch. Kendall, thank you so much for coming on. This was awesome.
Yeah, man, it was a blast.
I love this. Is like, I know you get to do this on your YouTube channel, but I never get an outlet to show people my records because my wife doesn't care. She thinks I spend too much money on them.
I know how that is.
Yeah, my daughter, she loves vinyl. She's actually got she's probably got like 50, but 45 of those are Taylor Swift variants. So, it's rare that I get to talk to another record collector and compare records and stuff and show off records. So this was a blast, a lot of fun. We'll definitely have you back on sometime if you ever want to do another one of these shows.
Of course,
that would be cool. So,
blast.
Yeah. All right, guys. So we will see you back here soon.